but also I'm always exploring new materials and trying to work with new materials. And I find this is very interesting because you get the benefit of casting something, but also using a new material that really you don't get to see it very often. Now, as you look at this is actually 1 ounce aggregate mixed together with 1 part aggregate and 2 parts Portland cement. Let me just do my notes. 2 parts aggregate and 1 part Portland cement. And you just put just enough moisture in there, just to, so it's not just slurry, but just enough to kind of for it to set. If you don't put enough moisture in there, it's not going to get all the way down there. And then you put it in there and you vibrate it. You shake it. We have a vibrator LCC we vibrate it with, and then once it settles down, then you let it sit for 24 hours. After 24 hours, then you pop it out of the mold, okay? And it's a simple mold, plaster mold with a silicone mold. I think it's a cheap silicone. You buy at Walmart and they spray it with WD-40. And turns out the WD-40 is the most dangerous of all the chemicals they use in the whole process. But we pop it out of the mold, and then you start with 60 grit, and you start working your way down to 600 grit sandpaper, and you just start sanding it finer and finer and finer and finer until you start. And the more you sand it, the more it starts to shine and become more luminescent. You'll notice that in this sculpture there's little flaws that I've intentionally left behind. It's not that I'm lazy. It's because it's me kind of rebelling against the machine to show that this is hand done, this is handcrafted, and that this was not done by machine. This is actually a piece of pottery I made. One of the things I am is I'm a very proficient potter. And again, I'm rebelling against the machine. I don't like perfect pots. I can throw very perfect, thin pots. And so what I have done deliberately when I get on the potter's wheel is I deliberately push it off center. But this one, I deliberately took a rib and I pushed it out. And what I did, I took dry clay and just threw it on the outside of it. And I just kind of kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing. And so you start getting this little texture and patterning. And yes, there's even a hole there that's on purpose. And yes, this bowl has been used many times in my house. We do eat out of it, and no, it doesn't leak the food. But it is a deliberate intention, a part of the, creating that the more imperfections I could put into, the more I wanted to, make a bowl that was more imperfect and yet beautiful at the same time. When I say the word beautiful in artwork, that's debatable. But I used it, and then I took little pieces of clay and just slapped it against the edges as the wheel was turning. Actually something I did in Photoshop several years ago, and I thought it was a lot of fun. What you had is, when I do artwork, I like to have fun. That's one of the most important things is to have fun, and I like to kind of poke fun in the world and have fun. And I think this is just me having fun. And what I did is I just took, our national players from our tennis team who were national champions, and I took some pictures of them playing, and then I actually took a swimming pool and turned the swimming pool into the tennis court. And then I had to actually make it look like the ball was bouncing. So I basically, to get that splash, I actually took blocks of ice and I threw it in the pool, took pictures of it to get the, because at least the blocks would melt and that ball would be disturbing the pool. And so that's just me just having a little bit of fun. Walking on water and playing on water.
That's it.
Punch Drunk, and basically I like to combine a lot of the elements of toys and games, and this is part of one of my game board series. And here you see this boxer that is sort of has only one arm to fight with, and he looks very fatigued and sort of frustrated and sort of punch drunk. But when you look at what he's actually fighting with, it's only a clown, where sometimes we feel that our problems are a lot bigger than they really are, and what we're fighting with is just a silly clown or a jack-in-the-box. So that was sort of the idea, and the prize here would be these marbles. They're sort of like, and you can see that it's basically little dance steps. It's like they're sort of dancing around each other. In a way, when you think of boxers, they look a little bit like they're sort of dancing around each other. And you know, I think of, when I think of toys, when I put them together, I like for them to reflect the human condition, and I like them to say a little bit about our relationships and some of the things that are going on inside and how we relate with other people. And you know, sort of the idea that life is a game, you know, and we're all toys, and we're manipulatable, and you know, we all just sort of have to learn and understand how to play a game. This piece here is called the Game Piece Portraits, and it's also a little series that I'm developing on creating portraits of game pieces. I create them, turn them into human beings. The same idea being that, you know, we are all game pieces, and we're all subject to manipulation, and we're sort of stuck in our little realities and in our situations that we are. This is a series, and this has 3 pieces. The first one is called Dancing Girl, and she looks like a girl that is really enjoying having fun, and that may be one role that a woman can take. You can see lately I've been adding this element here where I put a link there, sort of like a puppet. Especially the Mexican puppets, which are títeres, they usually have those little links there, the marionettes. This one is called La Perdida, which means the lost one. And you can see she's being thrown into like a barrel of trash. And she's sort of flying down, and so maybe she's done something wrong. This one is the enlightened one. It's sort of like she's gone beyond, and she sort of understands her situation and her reality, and she's traveling this road, and she sort of understands. Even among this little crazy guy that's looking at her, she sort of seems to know and be focused and knows where she's going. All of them have one foot. I sometimes like to remove arms or feet or any kind of appendages to sort of show our weaknesses, that we don't always have all the resources that we need to, you know, act properly or survive or anything like that. And so this is one of the reasons that sometimes I just add one arm or one foot. It's sort of to show us as humans that we're not all complete and perfect. This is a piece also from Game Piece Portraits, and this is St. Christopher. I participated with a group of printmakers. A friend of mine that lives in Chicago, his name is Rene Arceo, and he invited several artists from different parts of the world. I think some people came from China and South America and Mexico, and me from Laredo, Texas. But we had to do images that dealt with santitos, and that was the name of the edition. It was called Santitos. And my santito that I picked was St. Christopher, because he was my dad's patron saint. He is the patron saint of travelers, and my dad was a truck driver for many years, so it was one of his favorites. So I decided to pick him. But I was also very interested in the idea of the border. and sort of the idea that St. Christopher, the story goes that he actually took several people across the river, that he was sort of given this mission by this hermit, I think. And so he would walk across and take people to safety. And one time, I think there was a young child that he was carrying, and it turned out to be Christ, and he seemed very heavy. And so he took the Christ child across, which is why you have St. Christopher's always shown with a little Christ figure on the side. And also St. Christopher is also very human. He's not complete. He's got some frailties, and so here he has an arm that's missing, but yet he still manages to sort of survive and complete his I guess his duties. And in the back you see a young figure, I guess another game piece, but without arms. And this one is sort of floating across, sort of mimicking the idea of like how we have a lot of immigrants like going through the river. And so that's the whole idea here. And it's sort of like these nocturnal events that happen at night where people cross on the bridge. So that's what this piece is about. This work of art is called Two-Way, and it's my game board series. I've done a few game board series before. This was one of my earlier ones. This was, I think, 2008. And you can see that there's two figures, and it's a game board. You have these two little shapes here that sort of mimic the idea of dice. And one piece is going in one direction, and then the other one is going in the other direction. And you can see that they're sort of not really communicating or dealing with each other, and that sort of goes with the whole idea that I have of game pieces, or that these figures and game pieces sort of mimic a lot of the psychology that people are going through. So here it has to do with maybe indifference toward each other and the relationship that they sort of, one is looking one direction, one is looking in the other. And then on the top of the head, you see this projection from their head that sort of, I guess, talks a little bit about what their psychology is and what's going on inside them. This one is the forceful one, and then this one's the one that's sort of reaching out and trying to sort of look for something. And she's got one, she or he, I don't know. I like she-he's. But I sometimes try not to give a sex or assign a sex to the figures, but you can tell that this one's the smaller and maybe more feminine one. But this one, the eye is closed and then it's open, sort of like looking away from this one, and then this one's walking in the other direction. But I do love the idea of the game boards and seeing that the game boards are very much like our life. You know, it's how we play the game, and the situations that we're in are always games. So.